What's up, guys? Rick here with my top 5 sleepers for this week's Sentry Tournament of Champions. These are golfers a little bit further down the betting board or down the DraftKings player pool that I think are a bit undervalued for what they offer for this week. It doesn't mean that I'll be betting all of them or that they'll all be in my lineups, but I think it's an opportunity to pick and choose one or two of these guys that hopefully I can make a case for as a value option for this week in Maui. So let's jump into it. The first name is Scottie Scheffler. He's 8,500 and he's 35-1 to win the Tournament of Champions. I don't know if this really counts as a sleeper, 35-1, but it's only a 42-man field, so you're not getting super long odds on some of these middle guys. But Scottie Scheffler is an interesting case study, and he's someone that I think is a bit similar to Matthew Wolff. And Matthew Wolff has been really difficult to model over the course of the last 12 months or so because he has been really maturing almost every single time he tees it up. The game seems to get better and better. So it's hard to kind of keep track of all that. And I wonder if that's what we're starting to see with Scottie Scheffler right now. You know, the back-to-back fourth place finishes at the PGA Championship and the Northern Trust, his top 20 at the Masters, a 17th place finish at the Zozo. It just feels like his game is so much more mature now than it was even 6 months ago. And that feels like if it's a trend that continues, he's really going to be asserting himself into that conversation of some of the best young guns that we normally just reserve for Morikawa and Hovland and Matthew Wolff. So I think 2021, really interesting year for Scottie Scheffler. This is likely going to be a birdie fest. Scottie Scheffler makes a ton of them. He can outpace his finishing position with fantasy scoring. I really like the way that he puts it all together, and I like his chances, or at least for fantasy purposes, at the Sentry Tournament of Champions. Next up is Joaquin Niemann. He's $8,300. He's 45-1 to win this event. And this is a conversation I had with Greg Ducharme on the CBS Sports The First Cut podcast that I host. And Greg mentioned that Joaquin Niemann is streaky. And he's absolutely right. But I think this is a good conversation because there's kind of two different ways that you can be a streaky golfer on the PGA Tour. You can be streaky weeks at a time. You know, you can go 3 straight top 10s and then we don't hear from you for a while. And then you go back-to-back top 10s and then we don't hear from you for a while. Or you can do it the way that Joaquin Niemann does it, which is a bit more on a hole-by-hole basis. You know, he has these stretches of golf, 6 holes at a time, 8 holes at a time, where he gets scorching hot. You know, I was running the fantasy numbers, and he is a very valuable golfer in terms of how many DraftKings points that he produces compared to his average salary. And a lot of that comes from bonuses. A lot of it comes from his birdie streaks. He's racking up birdie streaks over the course of the 2020 calendar year. And I expect that to continue because that's the type of golfer that he is. So another one of these guys that generally outpaces his finishing positions. I mean, you can look at his fantasy scoring even in weeks that he didn't finish all that well in the tournament. You know, the last 5 weeks on the PGA Tour, he has scored between 85 and 99 DraftKings points. Think about that. It's a lot of points, and those aren't all top 10 finishes. It's just him finding a way to get the ball in the cup, score a lot of fantasy points, and help your lineups in the process. Cameron Smith is next. He's 8,400. He's 45-1. And this is probably the most off-brand guy for me. You know, between Cameron Smith and Matthew Fitzpatrick, those are probably the two because he's kind of a short game specialist, right? He relies a lot on the putter, which is not something I like, but I think we are seeing, again, the maturation process for someone like Cam Smith who started 2020 coming out of the President's Cup, had a really good showing there, was a fierce competitor. Wins the Sony Open almost immediately after that, the second week of the year, right? Almost coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that victory. That'll be next week. And, you know, he kind of dwindled a bit in the middle, but the way that he finished 2020, 24th at the Shriners, 11th at the CJ Cup, 4th at the Zozo, and then runner-up at the Masters. I mean, those are legit finishes in legit fields. I think he's playing with all-time confidence right now. I think he is more in control of his game than he's ever been. And if this trend continues, he's going to have a really big 2021 season. Might have a lot of good vibes returning to Hawaii. This is just such an interesting spot for him to maybe use that putting prowess on some of these large undulating green complexes that they have at Kapalua, I think Cam Smith is really interesting, and we know he can win on the PGA Tour. He did it last year, might just do it again this year. Next up is Ryan Palmer. He's $7,000 on DraftKings, and he's 80-1 to win the Tournament of Champions. And I don't think he's going to win the event, but I'm talking about Ryan Palmer in terms of fantasy scoring. And I'm just going to show you a tweet that I tweeted about Ryan Palmer. And here it is. I went back and I ran the numbers from 2020, and I used median DraftKings points. So I didn't use average. And the reason that I didn't use average is because, someone like a Martin Laird's a really good example. He goes out and scores like 140 points at the Shriners, and he misses a lot of cuts on the other side, and his average still looks good. When you use median, it's much more about consistently good. And that's what we're seeing here. So if you look at median DraftKings scoring, Ryan Palmer was the 13th best DraftKings player in 2020. Ahead of Patrick Reed, with the likes of Rory McIlroy and Hideki Matsuyama. And the reason being, he was just consistently good. Week in, week out, his average DraftKings price last year was $7,162. Just finds a way to get it done. I mean, this is an illustrious list of names I'm showing you right now. And the fact that Cam Davis, Ryan Palmer, and Maverick McNeely are on the bottom is a testament to their game last year and their prowess when it comes to fantasy scoring. So anytime Ryan Palmer is $7,000, he is certainly a viable option. And finally, Jason Kokrak. He's $7,300 on DraftKings. He's 90-1 to win the golf tournament, so actually even a bit deeper than Ryan Palmer is. And, the stretch of golf at the very immediate end of 2020 was not good for Jason Kokrak. I think he missed his last 2 cuts. But a little bit longer than that, his last 9 events, he had 6 top 20s, including the Zozo Championship, a couple of playoff events, a major, and he won the CJ Cup. 74 of some of the top players in the world got together to go to Shadow Creek, very difficult course in Las Vegas, and it's Jason Kokrak that comes out on top. It's impressive stuff. He backs it up the next week at the Zozo Championship. I think he's a pretty decent fit for Kapalua, being that he is sneaky long off the tee, one of the longer players in this field, and we saw that he has the ability to get some hot putters, some hot putting going on. And I know it's a bit much to ask him to do what he did at the CJ Cup again, but I think if he can even roll in a few putts similar to that, he's going to find a way to move up the leaderboard. Jason Kokrak, 7,300, 90-1 to win this event. There you have it. That'll do it for my sleepers, my top 5 sleepers for this week's Sentry Tournament of Champions. Let me know what you think. Tweet me at RickRunGood or leave a comment below. Best of luck this week. Good to be back. Catch you later.